Novak Djokovic is probably one of the greatest players of all time. Obviously, he's tied with Federer and Nadal. And even though he just recently lost the finals of the US Open, you cannot deny how solid his forehand is in his entire game. In this video, I want to show you what Djokovic has taught me about my forehand and the drills and things you can do to ensure that your forehand is just as solid as his. So let's get started. Now, when I'm talking about what he's taught me, we're going to look at this through comparison. I compared my forehand with Djokovic's forehand recently, and I wanted to know what are some things that I can improve in my forehand that will help me become more consistent. Because undeniably, one of the toughest players out there is Djokovic. And not because his forehand's one of the biggest forehands out there, it's just really solid. I was talking to a friend that I recently met that was 114 in the world, and he just recently played Federer, and he's also played Djokovic and Nadal. And in our discussion, I was really curious. I was like, who's the toughest? Like, tell me this. Who do you like not want to really play? And he thought about it for a second, and out of his mouth came the word Djokovic. And I was surprised because like Federer, but he said Djokovic. And the reason for this comment, or the reason he was saying it was so difficult to play, is because he's like, no matter what you do, the ball keeps coming back. He keeps making you play balls. And as a tennis player myself, when I'm playing somebody and it feels like no matter what I throw at them, it just keeps coming back, it's kind of demoralizing because you don't know what to do. And that's why this video is so important to you, to figure out how you can adjust your forehand and do some of these tweaks to make sure you have a consistent and solid forehand. So one of the very first things that I saw when I was looking at the video and the comparison between myself and Djokovic is how when he's doing the unit turn, he's not just turning sideways, he's actually doing the unit turn and pushing the racket up. I think one of the reasons he's doing this is because he's taking advantage of something called gravity, meaning that he's taking the racket higher, so in a second as he relaxes, he can let the racket drop. Now, in his first phase, which I call the unit turn, he's gonna show us a couple of things that are so important. I think one reason why his forehand's so solid is because of this first unit turn phase, because he does all these important things to help him not only get in a better position to hitting the ball, but being prepared to hit the ball, and he coils his body up so he doesn't have to work so hard. And so the first thing he does is push the racket up when he's doing his unit turn. He doesn't just take it straight back. If you look at more of a Federer doesn't push it up as much. He kind of takes it back, but Federer's forehand's a little bit more compact than Djokovic. The other thing he does a really good job of not letting go early. And you'll see some players where they take the racket back and instantly they're letting the left hand go super early. But what you see with Djokovic, he holds on longer, which what this does is coil his left shoulder and brings it around more. If you let go, this shoulder stays to this point, but if you bring it around more, it coils and it separates your hips from your shoulders, which creates that coil that you can then use to create more power. And there's one more thing Djokovic does on his unit turn that I think is so important that I don't see a lot of recreational players doing. He extends his left arm after he takes the racket back. So it looks like this. He takes the racket back to this point here, and then you'll see his left arm extend. The reason I think this is important, and this is a big one, is because by having this left arm extended, it tells his body where it needs to be to hit the ball properly, meaning having consistent contact. What I mean by that is if your hand is extended in here, which I see a lot of recreational players, they tend to hit too close. By having his hands extended, this is almost like the tracking device that he uses to find out where the ball needs to be so then he can swing and have that consistent contact, which is something we're going to talk about in a little bit. So let's get to a drill you can start doing today just to improve your unit turn. So the very first thing you want to do to start thinking about improving your unit turn is how you start in a ready position. So I want you to start in a ready position and making sure that you're in your forehand grip in your right hand. If you're right-handed, if you're left-handed, just do the same on your left hand. But just like this. Now notice, this is a big change. I'm not in a continental grip here, or I'm not in my forehand grip with the racket straight up. I want to have it where the strings are slightly facing inside the court. If you're even, let's say, a Federer type Eastern grip, that's fine too. But I want to have it where the strings are just like this. Now, what I want you to do is take and grab the throat with your non-dominant hand. See if you can get the throat just like this. So from here, we're gonna sit here with the throat, and all we're gonna do is actually let go with my right hand and take the racket and push it up and stretch it here. Now this seems really weird at first because you're like, I'm pushing up and I don't have my non-dominant arm. But what you should feel is this stretch, that you're pulling this back and pulling it here. My racket's facing to the side. Now, as we put our dominant hand on it, we're pushing the racket up and you feel this stretch. There's a huge separation between my shoulders and my hips, and this prepares you now. So the very first drill, all we want to do is do a bunch of reps. We're going from here to here. And I'm using my body to do it too. So I'm pushing back and you feel the stretch. After you do this probably like 5 or 6, maybe even 10 times if you're not used to this, start adding your hand, and the hand should be very loose and relaxed. This is something else we're gonna talk about in a second. But here to here, and you get yourself where you can see how my chin is almost over my shoulder and I'm coiled. Now, the second phase of this drill, after you feel really comfortable getting to here and having your hand hold on, is this dominant hand is gonna do a little bit more work, and then you're gonna extend. So we're gonna go push it back and then extend, okay? Push it back and extend. And it's okay as you push it back, you pull the racket back a little bit more, but most of the unit turn just has to do with pushing it back and that little separation here. I'll do it from the side so you can really see this. I'm pushing it back, and that little separation. With that separation, the hand's gonna be extended. And that's so crucial to being prepared. Most players don't have a solid forehand. It's because they're not preparing early enough and the right way. And as you can see, Djokovic does this, and it's a huge benefit for him being solid and consistent in every type of situation. Now, the second portion of what I really see, and something I personally had to work on over the years, and I feel like I've gotten better, is relaxing. I used to hit my forehands very stiff and very muscled. You almost saw how my shoulder was very tense. I could create a lot of racket at speed, but I just never got that pop. I mean, if you've ever been to a tournament and you hear the pros hit and you hear that pop, and you're like, how do they do that? And I'm muscling and getting tighter and tighter. I'm hitting with a ton of spin and I'm trying really hard, and I can hit a pretty good forehand. But what I had to work on is relaxing. And you really see this as Djokovic takes the racket back and he starts swinging the racket, how loose everything is. You'll see it even more in the finish. But the next phase is I want you to start paying attention to his contact point. So if we go back to the model of getting to this point right here, what you're gonna see is Djokovic dropping the racket under the ball, and then he starts using his hips to pull the racket, and this is a key marker right here. He's making contact more in front. Now my arm's a little bit more extended, you'll see him do. It's a little bit more bent. Federer's way out here, but the key is making sure that you're having contact in front of your body and not behind your body. I see so many recreational players when they're getting ready to swing, they're constantly hitting balls back here. Or I recently worked with a student and he was hitting balls back here and he can't get any power. He's kind of shoving the ball. We see the pros generating consistency and power, it's because they don't have to try that hard. They're using their body to pull the racket to contact. And that's the key to making sure you're consistent. Having a consistent contact in front of your body. You have no leverage, pretty much stability, if your contact's back here compared to here. Another analogy I like to think of is if you're gonna push on a wall, how would you do it? You'd have your arms out in front because you want to get your body behind the ball, okay, or the wall. And so you're gonna sit just like this with your arms so you could push against it. You wouldn't have your arms here because the moment you try to push against, it's gonna come back. Now, ideally, I know you're not pushing against something, but this is the most stable position for the hand to be. And that's why when you're making contact, you see all the pros making contact in front of their body because it's so stable for the racket, which means you can be more consistent with the balls you're hitting. Now, the drill I want you to focus on to make sure you're making contact in front is actually pretty simple. Once we get in this position here and I want you to drop your racket, now the key here is to make sure that your racket's still slightly in front of you. What I mean by I'm not having my racket back here. Another way of thinking about this is if I take my hands and I just turn it, my hands are still in front of me here. Now, just think about this. My hands are in front here. I'm gonna turn, drop the racket, and then all I'm gonna do is rotate my hand, and guess what? It winds up in the exact same place it is. So I'm turning with my core, dropping the hand, and as it comes through, I'm making contact in front. So this is the exercise I want you to try to do. Just turn with your shoulders, drop the hand here, making sure they're making here. And it makes almost like this loop here, which should look like a swing in a second, okay? It's kind of robotic right now, but it's key to keep your hand here. And the big mistake I see a lot of players making is when they take the racket back, they take their hand way back here, and then try to swing and look where my arm is. Once you've done this kind of drill where your hands are in front and you're making the shape, all you now need to do is the exact same thing. Boom, separate, drop the racket, and if I turn my hips, my hands are in front. One of the biggest things that I think holds players back from making contact in front is they don't know how to use their hips. And it's super, super important that if you just take your racket back and you allow it to drop here, all I need to do here is turn my hips and my hand should be in front. Now, and if you want to learn more about how to use your body, make sure you check the link in the description because I have a special video for you there to show you exactly how to use your body more on your forehand. Now, the final two things that Djokovic taught me that I can improve, this is definitely something I can improve, is making sure, like I said, I relax, but I relax with my finish. So what I mean by this is if I'm here, I'm dropping the racket and I'm making contact, I see so many players, including myself, the ball's gone. You see it on slow motion and you see you doing weird things like this. You're like trying to muscle the ball. I think of it, the analogy of like when you've been bowling and the ball's rolling down the aisle and you're like, or the lane, and you're like doing your body to like make sure the ball does something, but you can't control it. And so that's the exact same thing. As I'm hitting here, if I relax and pull the racket through, my arm should just nice and loose come all the way around. And so this is so important. And to do this, what I think of is the 2-finger drill. I basically take 2 fingers, or basically my 3 fingers, these 3 fingers, put it on the racket right here, and I try to swing because I don't want to clutch the racket. I want to keep this nice and loose. So as I swing, I just let the racket go around, okay? I'm not muscling or anything. And the reason why you relax is because you only have 3 fingers, it's very hard to grip the racket and squeeze the racket. If you can't squeeze the racket, guess what? That means your arm can relax. That means the rest of your body can relax. So this is one drill that I'll do to make sure I'm relaxing and not getting muscled. The final and ultimate thing Djokovic taught me about my forehand is, Kevin, I need to move up and hit the ball. If you see in my analysis, I'm hitting very open. I'm kind of waiting on the ball. And I'm hitting on the ball machine there. But you'll consistently see Djokovic when he's either running, cutting off the ball, or he has an opportunity, he's trying to step into the court. And this is so crucial. Not only from an ability to transfer weight forward, but it's a tactical and strategic thing he's doing that I think is so important. Tennis is about time. And when you watch most tournaments at a high level or a decent level, what you're going to see is the player that can generally be inside or on the baseline generally wins. Unless they're making a ton of mistakes, the player who is inside or on top of the baseline wins. The reason being is they're taking more time away from their opponent. And this is so crucial. If you can take time away from your opponent, that means you're going to probably force them to make more mistakes. If they're making more mistakes, you're going to probably win more points. So these are the keys to having a great forehand. But if you want to learn 5 more, or the 5 steps to having a perfect forehand, go watch this video.